Atherosclerosis is a condition in which an intimal lesion forms in the blood vessel. So here is a schematic diagram showing a blood vessel, and here is shown the intimal lesion. Basically, the blood vessel has various layers and the lesion forms in the intimal layer of the blood vessel. This lesion is also known as atheroma or atheromatous plaque or atherosclerotic plaque, and it consists of a raised lesion. So you see, this is the lumen of the blood vessel and this lesion is raised. Inside there is a core of lipid, and this core of lipid is covered with a fibrous cap. So this is fibrous cap. Okay, so what is atheroma? It is a raised lesion with core of lipid covered by a fibrous cap. Now, what are the risk factors for the development of this atherosclerotic plaque? Some of the risk factors are constitutional, that is, they cannot be modified, while other of the risk factors are modifiable. By changing the lifestyle, they can be modified. So, in constitutional risk factors or non-modifiable risk factors, we have genetic abnormality, increasing age, male gender. In genetic abnormality, we have the family history. That is the most prominent constitutional risk factor. If there is a family history, then there are high chances of development of atheromatous plaque. Then there is familial hypercholesterolemia. That is a rare condition, but yes, if in the family it is present, then there are chances of developing hypercholesterolemia, and hypercholesterolemia itself is a risk factor for development of atheroma. Then polygenic. Polygenic means suppose there is a clustering of genes in the family such that which increase the risk factor for diabetes, hypertension, hyperlipidemia. So if there is clustering of genes for these conditions, then these conditions itself are a risk factor for formation of atheroma. So that means there will be increased chances for atherosclerosis. Then increasing age itself is a risk factor, and in this basically the women before the menopause are protected. Okay, before the menopause, premenopausal women are protected. So men, there is more risk. However, post-menopausal, the risk in females also increases tremendously. In fact, it increases more than that of men. Okay, so male gender is there. Then modifiable risk, there is hyperlipidemia. Hyperlipidemia basically increase in cholesterol and increase in LDL cholesterol. LDL cholesterol, which is bad cholesterol. LDL cholesterol delivers the cholesterol to the periphery. Then decrease in HDL. HDL is a good cholesterol. HDL picks up the cholesterol from the periphery and delivers it to the liver. So it is a protective cholesterol. So increased cholesterol, increased LDL, decrease in HDL all lead to hyperlipidemia. Hypertension is a risk factor. Why hypertension is a risk factor? Actually, if there are hemodynamic disturbances in the blood flow, that also predisposes to atherosclerosis. In fact, hemodynamics is one of the most important factors because atheroma has been seen to be found in places in the blood vessels where there is turbulent blood flow. Suppose at the branches of the blood vessels, there are high chances of formation of atheroma. And hypertension with the hemodynamic disturbances leads to endothelial injury. Okay. Actually, all the risk factors which we are talking that are leading to endothelial injury, that we will see later in the pathogenesis. Then diabetes. Diabetes causes hypercholesterolemia. Okay. Smoking, the toxins which are present in the cigarette, that also predispose to atherosclerosis, and the presence of chronic inflammation. In fact, C-reactive protein is a predictor for the development of atherosclerosis. So more the C-reactive protein, more is the risk factor for development of atheroma. And on the other hand, if we maintain the lifestyle and make some changes such as exercise, okay, and we improve our eating habits so as to reduce the LDL cholesterol and increase the HDL cholesterol, in that case, CRP levels are also an indicator of improvement in the condition, because then the CRP levels go down as well. Okay. So these are the non-modifiable and modifiable risk factors. Apart from these, there are other risk factors which include hyperhomocystinemia, metabolic syndrome. Metabolic syndrome is a condition of clustering of abnormalities, like there is obesity, hypertension, diabetes, hyperlipidemia. So obviously these all are risk factors for atherosclerosis. So metabolic syndrome. Lipoprotein A, that is abnormal kind of lipoprotein. Again, rare, but yes, it is a risk factor. And factors affecting hemostasis, that is increase in the plasminogen activator inhibitor. So that is going to lead to increased propensity to formation of thrombus, then release of the thrombin from platelets. So all these are risk factors for atherosclerosis. Moving on to the pathogenesis. The main important pathogenesis part of atherosclerosis is basically it is a condition of endothelial injury, and it is a healing response to that endothelial injury. So what happens that there are risk factors or conditions which lead to endothelial injury. Body responds with a healing process, but it leads to chronic inflammation, and this further enhances the endothelial injury. So it's a feedback cycle, a vicious feedback, positive feedback cycle of endothelial injury and the healing response of the body. And the key players which are involved in the pathogenesis are modified lipoproteins. WBCs are there, that is monocytes and T lymphocytes. And then there are cells of the blood vessels itself, the lining cells of the blood vessels, that is the endothelial cells, and the cells in the tunica media, that is the smooth muscle cells. Endothelial cells and smooth muscle cells are involved. Okay. So let us see the pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. So here this diagram is showing the formed atheroma, and here it is showing the layers of the blood vessel. So if we magnify this layers of the blood vessel, this side being lumen, okay, this is the lumen, we have the various layer. There is a lining endothelial layer with the cells. Then we have the intima, media with the smooth muscle cells, and the adventitial layer which is formed from the connective tissue. Now, as I told you before, that atherosclerosis occurs due to the injury to the endothelium and the healing process which further leads to the injury. So we will see that how it is going on. First, most important thing is endothelial dysfunction. Now this endothelial dysfunction can occur either due to so many risk factors, and most important of this is hemodynamic disturbances due to any cause. Okay, hemodynamic disturbances due to any cause, plus presence of hypercholesterolemia. Okay, so increased cholesterol in the blood and hemodynamic disturbance is very important to remember. They are the main cause. So when there is endothelial injury, the lipids which are present in the blood, the LDL which is present, it enters into the intimal layer via this injured endothelial vessels. And this endothelial layer which is injured, it has three important roles. What it does is, yes, it allows the entry of the LDL, then it releases reactive oxygen species. Okay, it releases reactive oxygen species. Then it starts expressing certain adhesion molecules on its surface. Okay, it releases reactive oxygen species and starts expressing adhesion molecules on the surface. Now this reactive oxygen species reacts with this LDL which has entered into the intima and makes it modified LDL. Modified LDL. Now, I told you that endothelium is expressing these adhesion molecules on the surface. This causes the monocytes and T lymphocytes to bind to this adhesion molecules. Okay. So this is causing the recruitment of the monocytes and T lymphocytes into the intima. So after binding on these adhesion molecules, they also enter into the intima and they ingest that modified LDL. Okay, so they have ingested that modified LDL. Now this modified LDL is difficult to digest, right? So there starts an inflammatory process within the cells itself, and this cells with the ingested LDL, the modified LDL, these are known as foam cells. Foam cells. These, now there is an inflammatory process started within the cells and they are known as foam cells. Now these foam cells release cytokines, okay, because the inflammatory process started, they release cytokines like interleukin 6. T lymphocytes release interferon gamma, and because of these cytokines and interferon gamma, there is more recruitment of the cells, okay. So the cells, the T lymphocytes, monocytes are there, they keep on entering into this um, intima by the endothelial layer which is injured. So that is one thing. Second thing is that this also causes the recruitment of smooth muscle cells. So from the media, the smooth muscle cell go and enter into the intima. Okay, so here smooth muscle cells start entering. This smooth muscle cells, they undergo proliferation because of so many cytokines which are released, and proliferation occurs especially because of platelet derived growth factor, fibroblast growth factor, transforming growth factor. So there is proliferation, and these smooth muscles are different kind of smooth muscles. Their phenotype changes and they start synthesizing collagen. So there occurs collagen deposition as well. Okay. Then there is some neovascularization as well. That means at the end, at the periphery of this, there are certain new vessels which start forming. Okay. So did you understand? It is very simple. There is entry of lipid into the intima via the injured endothelial layer. Then they become modified LDL because this injured endothelial layer is also releasing reactive oxygen species. Then this endothelial layer expresses the adhesion molecules, that is obviously because of the injury and because of the presence of this modified LDL as well, right? Then monocytes and T lymphocytes adhere to these adhesion molecules and enter into the intima. They become the foam cells. Foam cells start secreting the cytokines which also bring the smooth muscle cells from the media into this developing lesion, and smooth muscle cells undergo proliferation and also the collagen deposition. Plus there is some neovascularization as well. Okay, so this is the basic pathogenesis of atherosclerosis. So here is a well formed plaque. Now what happens, this foam cells which I was talking, these are there is inflammation inside these foam cells, so they die also, and when they die there is a lot of necrotic debris which is accumulating within this area. Plus they also release the lipid which they have already ingested. Okay, so what we get, what are the components of plaque? There is superficial fibrous cap. Why it is forming? We have seen that smooth muscle cells, they cause collagen synthesis. Okay, so superficial fibrous cap is forming. Then beneath there is a cellular layer. What are the cells? All the three types of cells, that is the monocytes are there, which when entered into the plaque they are converted to macrophages. Okay, so here this monocyte, when they enter into the plaque, they form the macrophages. Anywhere, whenever the monocytes enter into the tissues, they become the macrophages and then they ingest whatever is there. So here macrophages have ingested the modified LDL. So there are macrophages, there are T cells, and there are smooth muscle cells. Then deep, this yellow, this deep is the lipid core, and there is necrotic tissue also with the dying foam cells. Okay, and periphery we have the neovascularization. Okay, so superficial fibrous cap, beneath this fibrous cap, and on the sides also, we have the cellular layer. These sides are known as the shoulder of the atherosclerotic plaque. So we have the cellular layer, deep we have the lipid core, and periphery we have the new vessels which are forming. Okay, so this is how the plaque will look. And see, as the plaque is growing, the endothelial layer is moving towards the lumen. So this is growing plaque which is obstructing the lumen. Okay, so as the plaque progresses, there is narrowing of the lumen. Now as the vessel narrows, there are again hemodynamic disturbances because the blood flow now will be through the narrowed vessel. So hemodynamic disturbances will again further promote the endothelial injury. Okay, and already in the growing plaque there is a positive feedback going on because the foam cells which are there and the T cells which are there, they are releasing so much cytokines that they are recruiting more and more macrophages and T cells. So it is kind of a positive feedback going on, right? Now there are different other consequences. So apart from narrowing and blocking the lumen, there are other consequences of this growing plaque, that it can rupture also. okay, and there can be embolism as well. So what are these consequences? One is rupture, ulceration and erosion. See, it is growing into the lumen, we are seeing it is growing into the lumen, and here there is hemodynamic disturbances are occurring because the blood flow is there, and there is increased shear stress. Shear stress is the transverse mechanical stress which is happening because the blood is flowing and it is like hitting on the wall of the vessels. So normally also it is hitting, but it is a laminar flow and the stress is lesser. But with this condition, with the narrowing, the increased shear stress occurs, and what happens that there can be rupture and ulceration of the plaque. So this layer may rupture, okay, and if this ruptures, what will happen that platelets will become activated. Okay, so there is an exposed plaque, platelets become activated, and this can lead to the formation of a thrombus here. Okay, so this is going to block the vessel. So already the narrowing of the vessel lumen was occurring due to the growing plaque. But if this ruptures, then suddenly there is a formation of the thrombus, and this thrombus is a catastrophic event. So acute obstruction of the vessel is going to occur. Okay, so person can die because of this. So suppose the atherosclerotic plaque is developing in coronary vessels, then there will be ischemia in the heart. So myocardial infarction is going to occur. Suppose the infarction is not of that category and care is provided in adequate time, then in that case the person will survive and some atherosclerotic plaque changes are going to occur. The plaque may get calcified. Okay, but it is an acute catastrophic event suddenly leading to ischemia of the tissue. Okay. Second thing is hemorrhage into the plaque. So we are telling you that new vascularization is occurring, new blood vessels are forming, and if there is ulceration, there will be breakdown of these vessels as well, and there will be hemorrhage into the plaque. Hemorrhage, again, what it will happen? There will be growth of the plaque. Okay, so because blood is filling up in the plaque is going to grow into the lumen, again increasing the blockage of the blood vessel. Then there can be atheroembolism because due to the rupture, the components of the plaque, the lipid which is there, it is going to come out. So there can be microemboli which is developing, microemboli which are formed of lipid core. Okay, microemboli. Then there can be aneurysm. Why there can be aneurysm? Aneurysm can occur because you see that this part of the vessel, it has thickened. Now, the other layers of the vessels are supplied by two mechanisms. One is diffusion of oxygen within the vessel wall itself, and there are blood vessels for the blood vessels as well. But because this diffusion distance is increasing, the oxygen is not able to cross to the other layers of the blood vessel. So what will happen? This media, there will be development of ischemia in the media layer of the blood vessel. So there will be weakening of this media layer of the blood vessel. Okay, and this weakening, you see blood flow is continuously happening and there is hemodynamic disturbances as well. So media layer, it has weakened. Now there will be push outside on the layer of the blood vessel. So there will be development of aneurysm in the blood vessel, right? And ultimately this aneurysm can rupture as well. Okay. So what are the consequences of atherosclerosis? One is progressive narrowing. Okay, so the development of the plaque itself slowly is going to obstruct to the vessel, but there can be acute changes which occur due to rupture, ulceration, erosion. There can be hemorrhage into the plaque because of this ulceration itself. Then because of the ulceration, there can be development of microemboli, and there can be development of aneurysm, that is weakening of the wall of the blood vessels. Now there is a concept of vulnerable plaque. Vulnerable plaque. That means there are certain plaques which have more chances to undergo this rupture, ulceration. And what is happening? We are told that smooth muscle cells are synthesizing the collagen. Okay. But our macrophages, they are the ones which are synthesizing the matrix metalloproteinases. So there is a balance going on between the synthesis of the connective tissue and the destruction of this connective tissue by the matrix metalloproteinases. So these are the ones which are destroying the collagen. Now, if this MMPs increase and there is an increased destruction, then the fibrous cap which we saw, this is a fibrous cap. So in that case, this fibrous cap will not be strong enough to hold the plaque and there are high chances of rupture of this plaque. Okay. So these are known as vulnerable plaques. In fact, hypercholesterolemia, hemodynamic disturbances, which basically increase the synthesis of MMPs by the macrophages. So they make the plaque more vulnerable. Fine. Now, what are the most involved vessels in this atherosclerosis and what can be the outcome of that? So, if we see in descending order, we have the lower abdominal aorta, coronary arteries, then popliteal arteries, internal carotid artery and vessels of circle of the Willis. So, when lower abdominal aorta is involved, there are high chances of development of aneurysm. Coronary arteries, progressive atherosclerosis, ultimately rupture and thrombosis will lead to myocardial infarction. Popliteal arteries, there will be decreased blood flow in the lower limbs causing peripheral vascular diseases. So when the person will walk, he will have ischemia during the walking. So that is peripheral vascular diseases. Internal carotid artery and vessels of circle of Willis, that is going to decrease the blood flow to the brain and it will lead to ischemia ultimately to the brain causing a stroke. So basically the large elastic arteries and large and medium sized muscular arteries are involved. Characteristically, mostly upper limb vessels are not involved. They are generally spared. Okay. So that was all about atherosclerosis. I hope you understood the concept and the importance of atherosclerosis. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, do press the like button, do share the video with your friends and don't forget to subscribe to the channel Physiology Open. Thank you.